Don't confuse activity for input for action that drives results. Going round and round in circles is activity, but it's not going to give you the results that you want as well. There's a beautiful simplicity when you first start out at something. There's nothing. You have to do something to create something. There's no momentum, there's no flywheel, there's nothing pushing you to show up and be busy and do meetings and move your desk around and stuff. If you don't do something that creates something that adds value to someone, there is no follow-up, there is no business, there's no transaction, there's no relationship, there's no depth that comes from that. And so there's something nice about like that, and the slate being clean. Like if I got to go and put myself out there, I got to go and find someone to talk to, I got to add value to them, and then something moves from that point. And there's also a frustration from being at that place as well. But all you're thinking about is, what do I do? What's my input? What's my action that I can take that goes and creates something? But once you do that and you start going and you create some things and you are 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years in, the flywheel is spinning. And so a lot of the things that you do tend to be reactions on previous inputs to get outputs that require administration. It's almost like the waste output of inputs that it was required to pull around to make sure that it all flows, the output of revenue, right? And the impact that you're having for your team. And so there's different levels. It comes back around. Like success is a cycle. It's not a linear thing. And so that input that you start on the front end is what you need to get your first output. And there may be some admin around that, but it's likely small because you're first starting out. And so it's easy to get back to the inputs. I'll do this again. I get that. And after a while, you kind of get so into the weeds of service of clients, of setting up things and doing paperwork and running and reacting, that you start to look at the outputs and start to forget the inputs. And this is obvious and clear, but it's something that somehow becomes cloudy. It's like the comfort zone itself. The reason why the comfort zone is so scary is that you often can't see that you're in it. And so you want to make sure that you're always coming back to snapping that chalk line and being clear around, okay, where are my inputs right now? And something that's come up a lot in the recent weeks with my clients is bringing new people into the team through expansion. And of course, this happens when you hit a certain level. You can review and go, okay, we're at the revenue level now where we need someone else new in the team. Second, whether that's first, second, third, fourth, 10th, whatever it might be, it's time for that next new person to come in. And every time that happens, it comes from a place of potential and opportunity, but it can also be something that sets you back. And so it's easy to focus on getting that new person in, focus on working on the business, as it said, but not have a system to make sure that in the business continues. In the business continues in terms of reactions, and this is the distinction to think about. Don't confuse activity for input for action that drives results. Going round and round in circles is activity, but it's not going to give you the results that you want as well. So you want to be really careful that, okay, I'm busy is not the same as I'm doing the right activities to lead to outcomes I want to get to. And so it's easy to go, okay, what do I need to do today based on my reaction? A good way of thinking about it is, what is driving my action right now? Is it something that's coming to me, or something that I'm coming out from me? And so the way to create the system around those inputs is to define it upfront as well. So very simply, when you first start out, it might be cold calls. It might be following up in other people's leads. So if you're a junior advisor, it might be that you're working someone else's book and you're getting some leads for that book you can follow up on as well. If you've got an established practice, it might have been that you are doing much less of that input and much more just meeting with your clients and doing reviews and asking for introductions. And that's great because the numbers change around a bit as well. And so an example I'll give you for this week. So worth thinking about, like, do you know on average how many meetings that you had last year? And what does that look like in terms of a week? And so rough numbers, maybe call it 40 weeks a year, and just as a starting point, and think about how many meetings you want to run. I worked with a client at the beginning of this year to really define that. So, okay, well, we don't know because we didn't measure it in totality in 2025. But the guess was that he did between 10 and 12 meetings. And he said, well, I could do 18 to 20. Okay, well, what's preventing us from doing that? It's like, well, not the amount of leads, nor the opportunities. Okay, so if we get really clear about that and we start to measure it, we can really make sure that the inputs are serving the outputs. And we said, okay, we don't know if it's 10 or 12, but let's say it's 10. And we don't want it to go to 18 or 20, but let's say 15. And so either way, that's 50% more meetings a week, 50% more meetings a year. Now 500 meetings to 750 meetings, that's going to be a lot more impact, a lot more business. Okay, so we started to measure that and understand it. And so putting it out there creates a lot of clarity. And then it's easy to go work on other things in your business. Okay, I've got to go and create some more COIs. I've got to go and make sure I get a new person in my team. Okay, I'm spending all my time and thinking in my CEO hours to work on my team. And of course, I've got all the other things in my life and looking after my family to take care of as well. Oh my goodness, now my average meetings are now down to 7. So creating a system for your inputs is vitally important if you want to continue to trade up. And every time you do trade up, that system for your inputs likely changes. And it might, and the further you go, you might find that change is more of a protection than what it's more of like, okay, I need to let more and more stuff in versus I need to be more and more protective of what I let in. And so let's say the analogy I like is pushing, the old analogy of pushing a snowball up a hill. Right, and push that thing up a hill when it gets really big, and that's like getting clear on focusing on the amount of meetings you want to run. And you might want to even measure the amount of calls or reach outs that you do on the front end as well. And after a while, you're like, it's solid, it works really well. You're like, well, I'm on flat ground here. I'll just leave that snowball and I'm going to go and work on something else. I'm going to go work on the next level strategy. I'm going to work on my client experience. I'm going to work on my wow for my clients, whatever that might be. But you turn around and go, oh wow, where the hell is that snowball? It's halfway down the hill. Because we weren't clear at creating a system, having something underneath it, so it really stays where it is as well. This is 3 times this week has come up for clients. And we want to make sure that we have the people in our team, whether that be an assistant, an office manager, a COO or the COO team, whatever you might call that person in your team, part of their ownership should be to make sure that they deliver amount of meetings per week on the book that you need. And then there's obviously derivatives of that to understand how many meetings how many closing meetings, how many prospect meetings, how many client meetings, how many advisory review meetings. And part of that is going through your book and understanding where opportunities are, who you need to serve, how you want to serve your clients. But it comes from that place. And so you might have a couple of people in your team and you haven't got to get it there all at once. But let's say you want to have 10 meetings a week just to be super easy on the numbers. You might find one other person in the team which perhaps does service work and maybe some new business work for you as well. They should be incentivized to say do at least 5 of those meetings for you on the week as well. So their responsibility is not just to make calls for you. Hey, here's some clients I want you to call on and do this task for me. We're going to make sure you transfer that ownership. So we're not delegating the task of making calls. We're transferring the ownership of getting calls booked on my calendar so I can serve my clients the best. That's a big differentiator. So that person in your team can come in and go, my goal this week is to book these 5 meetings or this 10 meetings or whatever it is, not just to call on these clients. And also, this is how we make sure that we can incentivize people in our team and allows us to have more impact on more resources in our team as well. It shows up all the time, but you've got to make sure that however time you're trading up in your business, great, congratulations. Let's come back to make sure that the inputs are shored up. You need to have a way of making sure that the reach outs are there, the calls are booked on the calendar. When they're booked on the calendar, you're going to show up for them. You can't be an established, successful advisor without showing up for your clients and be 100% reliable to do that. That's not the issue here. It's who's booking, who's calling or emailing, who's booking them, who's on the hook for making sure that they're booked. You show up and do your magic. Once you've showed up, you found some more business or there's something to do with that client to serve them, then your team takes it back, follows it through, make sure that their client always knows where they are and there's never a moment where they're going, oh my goodness, I thought I was supposed to hear back this week, this day, this tomorrow. There's always a connectivity with that client. They're following through. We help them with the paperwork. They close the business. We move on. That needs to be assessed at any given moment so we understand the inputs and the outputs for the success of your business.